The Village of Wheeling Plan Commission meeting for Thursday, February 14th, 2013 is called to order. Please stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Mr. Secretary, could you please take the roll?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. I am Commissioner Burns, and I am here. Commissioner Dorband?
I'm here.
Commissioner Johnson notified the chairman that he would not be here tonight. Commissioner Scheff?
Present.
Commissioner Stylen?
I'm here too.
And Chairman Raffato?
I am here also. Thank you. Mr. Jennings, any changes to the agenda?
We do have one change to the agenda. The docket, SCBA 13-6, has a additional docket, which I'll explain when it's called, for a appearance approval of the facade modifications. It is docket PC 13-2, should the commission wish to discuss it.
Okay, thank you. The next item on the agenda is citizens' concerns and comments. Is there anyone here that wishes to comment on anything that's concerning the village or any of the items that are on items for review tonight? No, thank you. Consent items, docket number SCBA 13-5, La Super Mexicana, 33 North Elmhurst Road, appearance approval of a wall sign. And Mr. Jennings, this is just moving, they're moving their business from Creekside Plaza to here and using the same sign, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, great, thank you. And then docket number SCBA 13-6, MJ Cabinetry and Tile, 230 West Palatine Road, appearance approval of a wall sign. Mr. Jennings, you know, is that a retail?
I don't believe they have a retail component. They're an office, partial office and partial workshop. It's a small tenant space within a much larger building.
Okay, great. Thank you. Do we hear a motion?
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Mr. Secretary?
Motion was made by Commissioner Stylen and seconded by Commissioner Dorband. Commissioner Stylen?
Yes.
Commissioner Dorband?
Yes.
Commissioner Burns, I vote yes. Commissioner Scheff?
Yes.
And Chairman Raffato?
Yes. Number 7 on the agenda, items for review, docket number PC 13-2 and SCBA 13-4, Save a Lot, 901 West Dundee Road. PC 13-2, minor appearance approval of facade modifications, and SCBA 13-4, appearance approval of a wall sign. Mr. Jennings.
1 second while I catch up. Before I hand it over to the petitioner on this, there was a significant amount of review both in the staff report and in the subsequent modification of the sign that was communicated to the Plan Commission. Much of that discussion is now irrelevant. The petitioner has proposed a modification to the sign, which I will let them present. But the purposes of the various interpretations relating to the code have been rendered unnecessary by that. So if the Plan Commission wants to discuss those, just in terms of the general idea of those, perhaps during other business we could go through some of what that what those implications would have been. But at this time, the sign has been modified in such a way that makes those interpretations unnecessary. In addition to that, the petitioner has requested approval to modify the paint color on the entire EFIS facade on the front to a lighter version of what is there now. I think it's a light tan. This would be more of a cream color, and the brown stripe would be a red color. I can pass both of those to you. And with that, I would like to hand it over to the petitioner.
Thank you. Could you please give your names to the recording secretary, name and business address, please? Thank you. So if you want to explain your sign to us, that'd be great. Thank you.
My name is Art Holland with the Holland Design Group. This is Tony Giannopoulos. He's one of the owners of the store that's going into that location.
Could you speak a little bit closer to the microphone?
I'm sorry.
There's tons of fans out there that want to hear it.
Happy Valentine's Day, everybody. Thank you. What we'd like to present to you tonight is the wall sign that we're proposing. It's a sign that is just identifying the name of the business, Save-A-Lot. It's mounted on a rather creative raceway. It's a curved aluminum structure that contains the letters of Save on the top, and then a lot is placed across the fascia of it on the gentle curve. And underneath we have a couple small spotlights washing the wall on the downlighting. So it's a rather unique approach to presenting the sign. I think it's creative. I was kind of impressed with it. And it's going to be illuminated from the inside. The faces are plexiglass. The color on the Save is red as shown and blue on the lot. The trim caps are colors on the lot to match the raceway. And the Save-A-Lot is entirely red, the trim cap, the returns, and the letter itself. This is going to be placed centered on the wall on their business area. It's going to be in line with the neighbor's sign, the Always Something. It'll be on the same horizontal plane. And again, it's illuminated. If there's any questions I can help you with.
Thank you. We'll start with Commissioner Burns.
Thank you. The original proposal included the words food stores,
That's correct.
and it looks like you're not planning to add that at this time.
Definitely not.
Okay. I'm not familiar with Save-A-Lot food stores. For me, if I was driving down Dundee Road, I'd wonder if it was just a bargain store or a food store or what y'all were selling.
I can comment on that. You know, we had the same idea, which is why we initially wanted to propose the food stores. But after a certain period of time, we believe that most people would come to know our business, and so that food stores tag would be unnecessary. Instead, what we plan to do is do some heavy advertising via mail and mail circulars in order to get our name out and about in the community so people can know what we are and what we stand for. And I think that by word of mouth and by some advertising, that food stores will effectively be there.
All right, great. This is now conforming as far as size of the sign?
Yes, it is.
Okay. It's very attractive. I like it, and thanks for coming to Wheeling, and best of luck. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Dorban.
I like this copy very much. Appreciate the change. Thank you, and good luck.
Thank you.
Commissioner Schaaf.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I like the sign. I have one other question is what hours are you going to be operating?
We'll open at 8 o'clock to 9 p.m.
8 to 9, 7 days a week?
Yeah, 7 days a week.
Okay,
8 a.m. to 9 p.m., I guess.
8 a.m.,
8 to 9 would be tough. Just
8 to 9.
Be rough on business.
That would be.
Is it, I mean, on the order of a large market, or is general food?
Well, this store used to previously be an Aldi, and
Right.
Save-A-Lot is, there are not many local to this area. There's some on the southern side of Chicago, and it's a similar concept to Aldi, where there's a corporate Save-A-Lot, it's a discount food store. Now, Save-A-Lot, the corporate company, offers licensee programs, of which me and my partner have 2 stores right now in Wisconsin, in Kenosha and Racine. And what we like to do is, you know, people don't just want dry goods. We like to introduce a larger line of things. So we have fresh meat and fresh produce, as well as discount grocery items. So the idea is that it's a one-stop shop for food, but it's a very small footprint. This building is only about 14,000 square feet. The selling area is going to be considerably less than that. So we try to maintain a one-stop shop for food that people can get a good value for a healthy meal, in a quick, customer-friendly atmosphere.
Okay, you're not applying for any liquor license?
No,
Okay.
there's no, it's too small to even
Yeah, it
consider
is
that.
rather small. I know that the previous tenant there, Aldi's, did not sell liquor.
No,
He sold liquor
at
up in
this time,
Buffalo
we're
Grove.
definitely not going
Yeah,
to do that.
okay. Very good. I like the sign. It was good.
Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Stalin?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just in case the people in the audience or at home didn't hear, you will be occupying the old Aldi space, so.
Yes, the old Aldi on 901 West Dundee.
Right.
Soon be a Save-A-Lot.
Right. So that'll be a good addition to our town. I do have a question. The raceway color appears to be a light blue in this depiction. Is it going to match the building, or is it going to be that light bluish color? Do you know?
Colors should depict brushed aluminum finish. It'll be a matte finish. and
Okay, so it'll be more of a silverish.
more of a silver,
Okay.
like you have on your podium.
And I'm a little bit worried that the raceway seems to, at least from this depiction here, seems to be cutting off the bottom of your sign a little bit. If they were to move it down an inch or so, Andrew, would that be impacting on any of the calculations that you did?
It wouldn't, I mean, within it would be a very small change, but the angle from which you see this from the street, you're actually a little bit above the parking lot. I think that you won't notice.
Yeah, I'm not too worried about from the street, but once you got into the center, it might look a little funny to people that are shopping there, you know. Do you have the sign like this in other locations? Do they have any problems like that?
Not that I'm aware of.
This is a sign that's actually commonly used by the corporate Save-A-Lot stores that they run. So we actually would be getting a sign from them, and they put this all over their stores, and it's not an issue at all.
Alrighty. Then I have no other questions, Mr. Chairman. Welcome to Wheeling.
Thank you. So you're a licensed store? I was reading they have corporate stores and licensed stores.
Yes.
Are you a corporate store?
No, licensed store. I'm
Licensed
independent.
store. So difference being, I mean, you have to abide by all the corporate.
The licensee program is more of a supply agreement with
Okay.
with them. It's really what it comes down to.
All right. Okay, interesting. And how many, it was 1,200 stores that you have? It's a fairly large grocer.
Well, the corporate has about 1,200.
1,200, but in total, yeah.
It's gonna be three.
If you had 1,200 stores, you'd probably be sending somebody else here to talk about this. You have, I mean, in total, it's what, 1,500 stores that Save-A-Lot has?
They have quite a few, yeah. I'm not sure about, I don't know what the total number of licensee stores is, but I know there's about 1,200 corporate stores.
Oh, okay, interesting. So, now, as far as the repainting of the facade, I don't know, do we want to discuss that?
Are there any other questions on the signage while we have that?
I don't, it's a great sign, it's a completely different, yeah, it's a good sign, so I'm okay with that. I don't think there's any conditions on that we would need.
Okay, and then the only condition I had on the sign then was just clarifying that the motion be updated to refer
Right.
to this drawing.
Right.
And then on the appearance, if the commission would like to talk about it, we can move on to that. The only staff suggestion on the appearance docket would be to receive confirmation from the building owner that the entire facade could be painted to match prior to proceeding with the job.
Well, I guess my question is, why can't the entire shopping center be painted the same? I mean, we're getting into then it's consistent now. I mean, it's not, it's not the greatest color, but me personally, I would like to see the whole shopping center, but unfortunately, the owner isn't here. I'm not, and and I'll take a poll as to how everybody feels, or actually I'll ask everybody to make their comments, that, you know, we want it as one shopping center. I know it's disparate buildings, but to me, it's like, you know, a couple of times where we've seen townhomes that have different color roofs, or they change something without thinking about the consistency of the whole shopping center in this place, or, you know, a townhouse development. So, but I will defer to the fellow commissioners. Commissioner Schaaf, any questions about the painting of the,
Well, as I look at it, it is separated. However, I would like the entire shopping center to be the cream color rather than that, the sand, of the sandy color. That's just my opinion.
unfortunately, the petitioner
Right.
doesn't control
This color?
that.
Are you
Yeah, I
doing
would like to
this
see, you know,
This color?
I would like to see it consistent, but if the owner of the shopping center has no problem with that, because of the separation, I wouldn't have a problem with it. I do like the consistent one color.
Okay.
But I would have a suggestion, though, that the old Sears building behind it, or the old furniture store, that facade, because it is connected, be painted the same as what they're introducing here.
Again, unfortunately, the owner is not here.
Right.
Commissioner Stalin.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, I think the new colors are real nice. I really like the red band. I think that will complement your store very nicely. In addition, I do agree that I think the entire center should be uniform in color. And I'd like to go even one step further. You know, there's an outlot, there's the old Shell gas station that's on the corner that this property owner kind of holds ransom because there is no cross-access agreement with that property, so, and it's too small to develop in most any way. I'd like to see some kind of requirement that a cross-access agreement be granted to that property so it could be used in the future by him or somebody else. And again, I don't know to what extent we can go for, you know, an sign in appearance approval, but that shopping center has not been in to see us in a long time, and I think it's, you know, there are some things that need to be taken care of. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Commissioner Dorban.
Well, thank you. I like the idea of the consistency of the whole shopping center, and I didn't think about what Terry just brought up about the cross-access. That would be wonderful if we could encourage him to do that as well. Thank you.
Commissioner Burns.
Well, I guess it would be nice to get the parking lot redone too. But for this petitioner, the fact that he's willing to paint this facade is more than generous. If the shopping center owner doesn't want to paint the rest of the facades, including the old Sears outlet store, which is offset, same, I mean, it's connected to this building, but it's not one continuous facade, that's up to him. It's certainly not going to be at the expense, I don't think, of this petitioner. So those are my comments.
But I don't think that was the question, if we wanted to ask this petitioner to paint for all that, right? It was, we were asking the shopping center owner,
Right,
correct?
yeah, unfortunately.
I think that needs to be clarified then.
Oh, yeah, I'm not expecting this petitioner
Yeah.
to, I'm expecting just
Right.
this petitioner to paint what he requested to paint. Commissioner Steinle, I'm not sure we can, the cross-access would be a stretch on a
Probably not, but it would be nice to ask.
minor appearance approval. You know, I realize, I know where you're coming from, but that might be a stretch to try to get that one. And I don't want that to, knowing the owner, you know, and how he hasn't showed up here, I don't want that to jeopardize a retailer coming in. But with that said, I would like to at least put in a condition that the repainting of this is contingent upon the landlord painting from this building to the east.
West.
No, east.
East.
From this building east towards 83.
Not including the old furniture store?
Sure. Yes, I'm sorry, yeah. But, so now I'm going to ask you, okay, if he doesn't agree to that, the owner, not you, sir, not you here.
Sure.
If he doesn't agree to that, what are our next steps? Do we allow them to paint it white, or should we go with the same color that's there?
Maybe we could ask the owner to come in and talk to us.
That might hold them up,
I personally don't want to hold them up,
right?
but, how can we encourage the owner to come in and talk with us?
Mr.
We
Jennings?
could do a conditional approval that is either, as it stands, the sign approval has the requirement to repair and paint the facade, so that would be in the same color. You could have a conditional approval that should the appearance be modified, it would involve the entire shopping center. That way they can at least go through it with the sign, they can go through with everything else they're looking for, and the rest of it would be held up. And I don't know how the petitioner would feel about that, but
Yeah, because we're not holding you up by any stretch of the imagination.
I don't want to hold him up.
Right.
But
I mean, I certainly think that our landlord would have no issues with us painting that whole facade and at our cost, but in terms of all the other facades, that's up to him, really.
Right, it is. But the issue is whether we let you paint it your color or we require you to paint it the color that matches the rest of the other buildings. That's what we're looking at here. So, Andrew, if you could put what you put in as a condition, so it does not impact the petitioner, that would be great.
so are we saying that the petitioner would paint using the colors that he's provided us? And then if there was any other changes or any other painting done, that they would paint these colors for everything else, correct?
I don't think
Is that what we're asking for? I'm confused.
the way I understood the request was that the sign move ahead and the repainting is approved, provided that the paint be applied to the entire shopping center, which would be basically a conditional approval that would require the shopping center to come back if they objected to it. Otherwise, the paint, by the sign code, the facade would get repainted to match what it currently is.
Right. So it would be painted to match the color that's there.
Okay,
Yep. So it doesn't hold him up at all?
right.
It's not the color that you wanted, sir, but the consistency for me is,
And given the weather, you would have time built
Oh,
in
yeah.
to go speak to the shopping center owner.
Yeah, we're gonna have to paint tomorrow.
when do you anticipate moving in?
We already started some construction,
Great, good,
and hopefully, middle to end of March, we should open for business.
excellent, great.
Wow.
So if you could read that condition when you're done, so everybody can hear it and figure out what they're voting on.
Condition number 1, that the repainting of the facade be completed in conjunction with repainting the ephes for the entire shopping center. And that was for PC 13-2, leaving SCBA, the sign docket, approved, just updating the motion to reflect the current sign. Do you understand?
Yes. I'll talk to the landlord.
Great, thank you. So the the option is for him to paint the rest of it, or for you to paint just your space, the existing color that's there to match the existing color, so it's consistent with the rest of the shopping center. So do I hear a motion on PC 13-2, minor appearance approval of facade modifications?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Motion by Commissioner Dorband, second by Commissioner Stylen.
And Commissioner Dorband?
Yes.
Commissioner Stylen?
Yes.
Commissioner Burns, I vote yes. Commissioner Schaaf?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson is absent, and Chairman Rufato?
Yes. SCBA 13-4, appearance approval of a wall sign. Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Mr. Secretary.
Motion made by Commissioner Schaaf, seconded by Commissioner Dorband. Commissioner Schaaf?
Yes.
Commissioner Dorband?
Yes.
Commissioner Burns, I vote yes. Commissioner Stylen?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson is absent, and Chairman Rufato?
Yes. That's it. We just have something for you to sign. Welcome to the village.
Thank you very much.
I don't want to put too much burden on you. And just as an aside, I was wondering why, and I forgot, so I was looking through the ordinances, that you would have thought that a grocery store would have been a special use, but there's two retail establishment in an MXT.
Repeat that.
There's two categories of general, I think it's called general merchandising in an MXT. Well, there's actually throughout the village. There's general merchandising, 20,000 square feet and under, and 20,000 above. 20,000 square feet and under is a permitted use. So if he would have taken over the whole, always amazing in that, it probably would have been over 20,000 feet. It would have come to us as a special use.
Thank you for that clarification.
So if he would have gone into the old Sears outlet,
Yeah,
I
that's
think that's
probably,
like 28,000.
yeah, right.
Then
Then it
that
would have been a special use.
Okay,
Right.
I got it.
I do all the work tonight, huh? Who's next?
Yes.
Hey, Jim. He didn't sign this one. How come I signed it like a gazillion?
See, you're lefty, you should be sitting here.
And actually, if you go out to their website, they've got a history of their, of the stores and how they started. Started in Illinois. Cahokia.
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 The first one, you could only save a little.
Yeah, save a little. Yeah, the first one, you save a little. Okay, calling docket number PC 13-1, Heritage Park Subdivision, 333 West Dundee Road. Approval of a final plat of subdivision. Mr. Jennings.
Thank you. Docket number PC 13-1 is actually associated with a major site plan and appearance modification for Heritage Park that was done, I would say a little over a year ago now, right? The subdivision was separated from that docket due to the fact that MWRD was in the process of acquiring some of the lots associated with the subdivision. For the commissioners who have not processed a subdivision before, a subdivision like this, where you have lot lines moving slightly, you have consolidation of property. You have basically consolidation and re-subdivision. It's appropriate to waive the preliminary plat requirement on a more significant subdivision. The village code requires a preliminary plat to be processed and reviewed twice, basically, once it's preliminary, once it's final. In this case, it's appropriate to waive that. So the motion that you see in front of you is to waive the preliminary plat and approve final. Following the motion, the Plan Commission would be asked to sign the plat document, and then it would be forwarded to the board for their review and signature. In this case, there's one other thing I wanted to note on this. The plat itself has already been printed and signed by the utilities. Following that signature, the petitioner discovered that the PIN numbers are listed incorrectly. The county recorder of deeds has confirmed that the appropriate fix for that would be to cross them out on this final version of the plat. We'll have the surveyor or engineer come in and complete that correction. So while you are signing it, they've indicated that it is appropriate to make a minor correction to this error.
Okay, great.
Any questions on this?
The only question I have is, do we need to note in the comments section or somehow, somewhere, the correct PIN numbers on our conditions?
No, I don't think we do. I'm noting in the motion that they are going to be, the PINs shall be corrected for consistency with the county records.
Okay,
I think that
was the only question I had.
Commissioner Stylen, any questions?
Nothing.
Commissioner Schaaf?
No, I have no questions.
Commissioner Burns?
Nothing.
Mr. Raffel, anything from you?
The only thing I want to thank the Plan Commission for taking care of this. I just also want to note that the board of MWRD, and, oh, by the way, I'm Larry Raffel with the Wheeling Park District, 333 West Dundee Road. Our park board has already approved the final plat decision and signed the plat, and MWRD's board has already approved it. So after Plan Commission, it goes to the village board, and then at that point it gets recorded.
Great, thank you.
And
So-
so just to, real quick before a motion is made, this area here that's shaded is what MWRD would own following the subdivision. They do own, actually, I think, all of this at this point, but this would consolidate their lots into one lot, and the remaining portion would be Park District lot, would be consolidated into one lot as well.
Does the lake still belong to the park or MWRD?
To the park.
Park.
The detention areas on the east side, if you recall the larger, then there's easements across both properties to access one another. There's actually a fair number of easements on this document.
It's quite startling going down Wolf Road. If you haven't been down it and you see and you go, whoa, wow. So do I hear a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to recommend approval of docket number PC 13-1.
Second.
We have a motion and a second.
Motion made by Commissioner Stylen, seconded by Commissioner Dorband. Commissioner Stylen?
Yes.
Commissioner Dorband?
Yes.
Commissioner Burns, I vote yes. Commissioner Schaaf?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson is absent, and Chairman Rafato?
Yes. Do we have to sign it now? Should we sign it now?
No, I'll hold on to it. I do need you to sign the decision sheet, though, please.
No. Yeah, I can't remember the last time we signed one. Could be.
Thank you, Larry. Approval of minutes, January 17th, 2013.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I had a correction, kind of, and I don't know if it's important, but on page 3, almost towards the bottom, it says Commissioner Stylen noted that the northern-facing parking lot of Fresh Farms has always been full and the south part was always empty. And I think that should really read, historically speaking, or prior to the latest remodeling, the front parking lot was always full and the back lot was always empty,
So prior to remodeling,
prior to remodeling.
that's the key.
Yeah.
And I do remember saying that, prior to remodeling.
I don't know if it's really that important.
Yeah, and I also, I missed it this time before, but it said a couple years ago, and it should have been a couple days ago, I think,
In that same,
in that same paragraph. I'm just looking at it. Riverside, yeah, I don't think it was years ago.
okay, with those two corrections?
Those two corrections, do we have a motion?
So move, Mr. Chairman.
Second?
I second. Motion made and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All righty.
All opposed?
Minutes from January 24th. Do I hear a motion? Corrections?
So moved.
I'll second.
Motion made and seconded to approve the minutes of January 24th. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Okay, moving on to other business. Workshop discussion of parking requirements. Mr. Jennings. Okay.
Thank you. I will try to be brief. As you recall, we had a workshop in January on two aspects of the village's parking requirements. One was the shopping center parking requirements, and the other was multifamily residential. At that time, the commission requested that staff take a look mostly at a couple of things under the residential. There were a few items suggested under the commercial. What I'd like to do is just go through a little bit of an update on what we've done and request a consensus to add this to the list of potential zoning code amendments, possibly for another workshop after we draft it up. Possibly as a public hearing, depending on how the discussion goes. With that, the shopping center discussion, I think that the consensus I heard from that was to look at ways to modify a few specific things. One was the minimum threshold for some of our percentages, the percentages that are reduced from the overall parking requirement. One was the idea that an anchor tenant, once they are large enough, might possibly need a parking requirement that acknowledges how many employees are in the building. So what we've done after looking at both the Wheeling Code as well as some of the other codes, in this case, particularly the Northbrook Code has a anchor tenant requirement that I think that we can model ours after. One suggestion that we had is have a parking requirement that's related to the same threshold in our code where a retail store becomes a special use. That's the 20,000 square foot mark. If you have a single store that is 20,000 square feet or greater, it requires special use approval. So what that would do in this case is we would add a new category in our parking table that would correspond to the category in the use table, which would be retail establishment, 20,000 square feet and up. Looking through the code, what we'd suggest based on the way that the Wheeling Code's currently written is a either or requirement, whichever is greater, between 3.5 per thousand or 3.25 per thousand plus 1 for every employee. So if it is determined that they have a really high number of employees, that would be reflected in the parking requirement. And of course, as a special use, there would be a requirement to review this at a public hearing anyway, so there would be an opportunity to question how many employees were in the building. Are there any questions on that?
Mr. Stalin?
Yeah, Andrew, for fresh farms, right? I mean, because they have an inordinate number of employees, what would that have done to the parking calculations that exist today? What kind of delta do you think would have occurred? Would it have been?
It would be up. It would be up probably by, just doing the math in my head, somewhere in the neighborhood of 25 stalls.
Wow.
Okay.
Under the either or scenario.
But would it have been, would the major contributor been the +1 per employee?
Yes, in their specific case, in this whichever is greater, they would have gone with the 3.25 plus 1 per employee.
Now, how is a business going to know how successful they're going to be and how many employees they're going to need before even moving into a building? How do we account for that?
Success is something that a code can't really predict.
But you are in the +1 for employees, so.
To some extent, I think the way that a store operates, for example, you frequently review restaurants. A large restaurant gives us a guess of how many they're going to have on a peak shift. We use that number in calculating their parking requirement. They could be, within a margin of error above or below that. It is their best guess. They believe that they are going to need roughly 20 servers, roughly 20 cook staff, roughly 5 up front. So they come up with their peak shift, add it to the number of seats, and there you go.
Do you think Fresh Farms would have guessed close to the number of people that they need today, or?
I think that had it come up, I think they probably had some ballpark idea. I think that they probably could have. Again, when we went through the last workshop, this was something that has not come up in the past. A lot of what we talked about at the last workshop was whether or not this needs to be addressed. Is this a scenario that is likely to come up again? And in the event that it does, I think that this would be a good way to address it, is to break out anchor tenant from the others. Again, a lot of the smaller tenants that have a higher demand for parking are already going to be a special use, so they're going to be covered under that. But this would at least add one safety net.
And I think on the other hand, business owners that come in and know that they're going to be successful probably would want to have additional parking beyond what our code requires. So, it's just a matter of the poor guy that comes in and happens to be very successful,
Right.
that he didn't plan for.
Right, exactly.
So I think worth a try.
Yeah, I think so too.
The other items, are there any questions on that first one?
Yeah, it was, so when Fresh Farms was approved, the ratio for them was 3.25 per thousand feet?
They were approved at 4 per thousand, and they had, the entire PUD had a reduction applied to it at the time that it came in. So they were kind of outside of what we're looking at right now. But
Below it.
I'm sorry?
They were below what we're looking at now.
Their approval is below what we're talking about right now, yes.
Thank you.
Any other comments? Jeff?
On the original PUD, since I wasn't involved in that, was the bank there on the original PUD?
Yes,
It was,
yes.
because that really threw a wrench into that whole scenario.
Well, yes and no. I mean, the bank has a parking requirement, and its existence decreases the amount of land available to park, but that, as a known quantity coming in, that was not assumed to be parking. It certainly, by taking up the space, took away that flexibility, but it was also a known, the numbers were known. We knew how much parking was left. We knew the bank had a certain allocation. We knew the rest of the shopping center had a certain allocation.
Yeah, well, the bank having, access to the entire parking area kind of threw a loop into, or a wrench into the whole thing also.
Only to the extent that the bank uses more parking than it would have been required to provide. It was calculated in, but if the bank, I haven't heard this complaint, but if the bank needs more parking than we believe banks need, if this particular bank is so successful that it needs more parking, then in that case, yes, they're using more than their share of what was originally calculated.
Yeah. Okay.
Any other questions on that one? The rest of these, I don't want to dwell on. There's not much that can be done with these sections. Based on what we have seen, we believe that you could increase the absolute minimums. The shopping centers are, the medium and large shopping centers are not, for the most part, in danger of approaching these minimums. So if there's a consensus that the minimums are set too low, we can bring them up. There's not much else that we can do with that. Okay. The other thing that we can look at is the thresholds, these 20,000 and 50,000 thresholds, just sliding up the threshold where the reductions start. The smaller reduction starts at 20,000. We could just shift that on up and go with 40 and 80, and we can look at how the calculations work out on that. The idea is that the larger a shopping center is, the more likely it is to have a diversity of tenants, and it's got a large parking field already and is therefore more easily able to handle the turnover. But that same principle can be applied starting at a higher point. On the other side of that, the reductions that we allow are 25% for the large and 15% for the medium. Those numbers can come down a little bit. So beyond that, there's not too much that we can do or that we would recommend doing. I still believe that these are good regulations to have. The exact number, I think we can come up with a table that sort of shows each one applied to a handful of sample shopping centers. Then the last point I wanted to make on this is, as we said at the last workshop, speculative requirement seems to make sense. I would recommend just leaving it alone. Yes. Okay.
Yeah, I think one of the problems, Andrew, is, we probably won't have too many redevelopments of our major shopping centers. I mean, maybe we might luck out in the future, but, it's just the new things. I'd be concerned about town center and how these changes may affect, town center, although it would probably come in as a PUD, right, which has certain
Right. You get a little bit more
degree of flexibility.
Yeah, exactly, and we have a little bit more teeth in it.
And I don't know, do we have any other major sites, maybe the old Kmart facility might get adjusted here somehow? But we really don't have that much land available for.
There is some vacant land. There are sites that I think, although it's sometimes hard to predict exactly what is going to become hot, there are sites that could be viewed as underutilized, where 3 or 4 small buildings in a row could be purchased and assembled and turned into a shopping center. So I think it's good to have to adjust the code to make sure that we're doing a good job of projecting the needs.
In that light, when you do come back for a final change to all this, is there any chance that you could give us, and I don't want to say an exact count, but some kind of rule of thumb of what this kind of change might have done to a Market Square or a Lynn Plaza or that shopping center on Camp McDonald and Wolf and stuff, so that we have some indication of how drastic these changes might be, or how, I don't want to say inconsequential. But
Sure, we actually do have all of that. We've applied these models to them, and we did show some of them at the last.
Sure.
But we can try to make sure that whatever we're showing is what you want to see.
Okay, great, thank you.
I have one question, Andrew.
Yes.
What is the speculative requirement that you want to leave as is?
The speculative requirement is when you're building a shopping center and the future use of that space is not known. We require 5.5 spaces per 1,000. It is above the retail requirement. It is below the restaurant requirement. And what it does is it assumes that some of the space could eventually be restaurant.
Okay, thanks.
Excellent. Thank you.
There are a lot of slides to this. What I'd like to do is try to get through most of it relatively quickly. It's, in summary, what we have found since the workshop. The Plan Commission, when we discussed multifamily parking, had a couple of requests for staff. One, that we go speak to other municipalities about this and see how they're faring with their new developments. And then, take a look at some of the developments and see what actual parking demand, actual parking usage they find. So with that said, we set out with this goal of having a better understanding of the relationship between the parking requirement in our code and encouraging residential development. We did consult with other municipalities, and I'll get through all these things. Some of this is repeat from last time. What we found, though, were there a few examples of recent construction that's actually been completed. There were more examples of renovations of existing apartment buildings and recent approvals that are under construction but not occupied yet. So getting a handle on actual parking usage is a little bit difficult. We did have, in our review, we ran into one of these developments for a project in Glenview at Willow and Sanders, actually very close to Wheeling. It's just been approved, large mixed-use development next to the Estellas building that has, I'll show you the site plan in a minute here, but 290 residential units, Mariano's, I think a fitness center, child care center, and then there's another building associated with it. So we ran into that, and in the course of that review, the developer provided comparable units in the area to try to explain why their parking requirement made sense. So it's interesting to see that, and this is what it is. Now they provided this comments, which is why I included here, is these ones are most comparable to what we would likely see. Near highway, but not necessarily considered transit-oriented. And the ratios that you're seeing are in the 1.62 to 1.74 range. Now the ones that have outstanding transit access, this Evanston one in particular, these are on express lines that are very close to the city. So people are actually more likely to live without a car in that scenario. But this is what we're focusing on, is these ones up in this range. Wrong way. Okay. So we took a look at 3 comparable developments, Woodland Creek here in Wheeling, the Green at Chevy Chase, and Winbrook Crossing, and made sure that they were comparable. We visited the locations to make sure their interior finishes were similar. We stopped by to check out the fitness center. We did what we could to make sure that we were looking at comparable units. What we learned in a nutshell is that they kind of hover around the 1.65 to 175 range as what they actually have. The Woodland Creek building, which you see on the screen here, those are the only ones that had any indoor parking out of those, which we still consider as comparable, and I'll explain why in just a second. But the number of one-bedroom, two-bedroom, et cetera, more or less comparable. Woodland Creek's heavier on the one-bedrooms, and some of these were. But these are fairly large developments that have a lot of surface parking. One common theme is that the other ones did have surface parking arranged slightly differently. I'll show you a couple images of that too. So Woodland Creek, which you see here, came up to a ratio of 2.26 total. That includes the indoor parking. We did a calculation factoring the indoor parking differently that I'll explain just one second. But the Woodland Creek example is interesting because they have indoor parking. They've got two different areas. They've got a north area and a south area. The ratios aren't exactly the same. The only one that had any complaint about the parking availability was the south area. And even in that scenario down in the south, they don't have enough of a parking problem that people choose to rent the indoor spaces to avoid the parking problem. So it's available, it's there, it's just maybe people can't find it close to the door, because we certainly found a lot of unused parking areas. The green at Chevy Chase, which is along the tracks, between the tracks and Milwaukee, just north of Lake Cook Road. Again, similar style development, surface parking only, renovated units. They do have a lease restriction there. You cannot have more than 2 vehicles in the 2-bedroom units. They have no assigned parking. It's all open surface parking. Comes down to a ratio of 1.68. All the parking is relatively close to the doors. It's dispersed. Next one we looked at was Windberg Crossing, also Buffalo Grove. This is rotated. This is actually north is on this side. So this is the Buffalo Grove Metro here. So I'd say this is a comparable walking distance from the Kinney construction site, if you want to compare what this would be in Wheeling. The ratio here with no parking limit, they don't have assigned parking, they don't have a limit, they don't have a lease restriction. The ratio that they actually provide is 1.76, and they report no problems of parking. There's a look at how it's dispersed, how it's sort of evenly distributed around the site. So the last thing I wanted to point out on Woodland Creek was why we felt it was a good example. They have indoor parking that is separated from the units. You do not have to rent it. You can choose to rent it, and the residents choose not to. It is probably the best estimates we could get were in the neighborhood of 20, 30, maybe % in the summer, and no higher than 50% in the winter. We toured the garage. You don't see a lot of evidence of cars being in there. So I believe that they aren't getting a lot of vehicles. We also found when we went outside that you don't necessarily see all the parking spaces used. We went after a snow to each of these 3 developments to see the next morning which parts of the lots were left covered in snow. So there's no evidence that a car was parked there overnight. And the example here is Winbrook. So with their ratio of, sorry, this is the green. So at less than 1.7, all the least convenient spots are covered in snow the morning after. We saw the same thing at Woodland Creek. So we estimate the actual demand at Woodland Creek to be about 1.64. Go ahead, sorry.
Well, the last picture that you showed, what percentage of the parking might be reserved for guest usage? And obviously guest usage may not stay overnight, whatever, which could be a reason why there's empty spaces.
None of these developments have assigned parking. So all of the spaces are equally usable by guests and residents. So if you were a guest at, in this case, when the Green, you could park in the lot. They don't assign it one way or the other.
Right.
The Woodland Creek indoor stalls are reserved, permitted specifically, but that's just the indoors.
But the 1.68 includes reserve, I won't say reserve space, it includes guest parking
Yes.
calculation.
Yes, it's absorbed into that number. So the Woodland Creek, what we used was sort of the average between the summer and the winter to try to approximate indoor usage. And we also assumed for this number, this 1.64, we assumed 100% outdoor usage. And what we found when we went the morning after it snowed was that the parts of the lot that were most remote were clearly not used. There were either the dumpster was there and it had snow on it, or there were huge piles of snow where you could tell that there was no car there. The other part of our review were some of the developments that we would consider not comparable. There's a new development. This is where 45 takes a left off of Milwaukee. 21 keeps going north. So you're north of Half Day here. I'm trying to remember the name of the restaurant here.
Oh, Gilardi's.
Tom and Eddie's, I think, is up here in the new thing, right? So to orient yourself, that's what we're talking about.
Half Day in?
No, Gilardi's.
Okay.
Yeah.
So this development, the amount of outdoor parking was somewhere in the neighborhood of 0.3 per unit, and the indoor parking is just over 1 per unit. So they came up total with a ratio of 1.7, however it worked out, or something to that effect. But 1.7, 1.65, 1.7, that includes their indoor parking, their outdoor parking, and the visitor spaces. Now, this is a mixed-use development. We threw it out for that reason. It's although these are a lot of restaurants, there is a point at night which they do close and people could park there. This one was interesting in that the management company reported that people probably would have, if they had the option of paying for more parking, they would. But they are fully leased. They cannot, it was difficult to get a hold of them because they were always showing a unit and they were always busy. And these rented from, the other reason we didn't find them comparable is they rent significantly higher than the other places we were looking at. This is the Glen Star development. This is Willow and Sanders. We left this one out. It has an attached structure. It's an open structure, but it's attached to the building. It's a 4.5 level parking garage. It was being proposed at 1.72. It did get approved just in the last few weeks here. This is the fitness center, the Mariano's child care facility. There's a bank. There's another couple of retail places. We left it out, large mixed-use development, but and then it had an attached structure with no non-structured parking.
Cool.
So one of the last things we looked at was parking ratio and rent. The rent was not substantially different. The lowest parking ratio we found was also the highest rent. I don't think that's what you would find if you looked at the entire country. But in this case, that was one of the reasons we did find it to not be a good comp. The thing we found that was interesting was that when the indoor parking is optional and you don't have to rent it with your unit, the renters chose not to. They did not find it to be worth it, even at, I can't remember exactly what the dollar amount was, but it was not significant. They'd prefer to park outside. Even in the winter, the lot is half rented.
Some of those are, I mean, you say they're not substantially different, but look at the rent. You know, when you're talking about a two-bedroom, 1,300 for Woodland Creek, up to 2,300.
Well, that's not comparable. We left that one.
Okay.
That was the point, was that we didn't
Right.
find them to be comparable units. But
Okay.
among these three,
Yeah.
the one that had the most parking and the indoor parking, the rent was not much different.
So the indoor parking, like at Woodland Creek, it's over one. Ratio is over one of indoor parking, right?
It's
I think it was 656 indoor slots and 640 apartments. Oh,
But again, they separated it for a reason. They separated it so that they could continue to compete, I'd imagine. But that's part of what we have heard, is that if you build a new structure, the rent does not go up as much as the cost of constructing it goes up.
okay.
So just a couple of ideas for future consideration. The site plan review, I think, is notable. The only spaces at the green at Chevy Chase that were clearly not used were the ones that were, at least the ones that were grouped together, were these ones on the ends that weren't exactly the easiest. And Woodland Creek, that became, these entire areas were totally unused. So just something to think about for the future and how we do our site plan reviews. Yes.
Andrew, can the number of, let's just say, rooms, being a generic thing to talk about, the number of rooms as you get to a larger number, like shopping centers, would it be advisable to maybe consider having some kind of reduction based upon, once you exceed a certain number of rooms or units or something, that you get that same effect of shopping centers? Not everybody there has 2.7, some people have 1.
I think some of these suggestions, I think, are in effect what you're talking about, where, outside of the indoor parking, but the flexible management, bedroom-based requirement, where the additional bedroom doesn't cost you as many parking spaces as the first bedroom did. That's, I think, exactly the same thing, is, you make your cutoff differently, recognizing that larger units are more likely to have a second car, so you're not necessarily preventing people from building a 1 or 2 bedroom development. And that's what most of these kind of get to, that is how to match up the parking requirement with what the eventual demand is going to be. What is the eventual usage going to be? That's that number that we're trying to get at, was this, you see a lot of 1.7, you see a lot of that area, and we're trying to figure out how to get closer to actual demand. Again, we're not talking about touching things like townhomes. We're talking about strictly the multifamily building, multiple units in one large structure. I think it is worth, I know that it's hard to talk about, but I think that it's worth considering either reducing or eliminating the indoor parking requirement. If we're finding that when it is optional, it's getting used at a low rate, in the rentals especially, that's one thing to consider. Again, a condo development where they believe they can sell the spaces, they can always go above the minimum, but bringing the minimum down to where the market actually is, I think could help encourage development. One of the big trends in building management and building construction is to look at flexible management, separating parking, unbundling it so that people can choose how many spaces they want, allowing the management to manage it through lease restrictions, that sort of thing. We talked about a transit-oriented reduction where you just drop a certain percentage. I think the consensus on that was let the developer propose that when they come in. I didn't get a really strong feeling that the commission viewed the train service in Wheeling as quite good enough to warrant that reduction. The bedroom-based requirement actually, I think, makes a lot of sense. Right now, the code treats a really large unit exactly the same as a really small unit. I think that it has the effect of, at least right now, preventing the type of construction that is in demand, which is the 1 and 2 bedrooms. We're discouraging that, I think, based on what we've seen. And then the last thing was reducing or rephrasing the visitor parking. Again, leaving townhomes alone, because the idea of having scattered non-reserved spaces, I think, makes a lot of sense in a townhome development. But in the multi-unit buildings that don't have any assigned surface parking, the visitor spaces just kind of get absorbed into it. As long as the overall number is good, they don't have to be singled out for additional requirement, I don't think.
But again, I think that there's, if you're talking about a unit that only has 20 units versus a unit that might have 300 units, the odds of having guests, a number of guests at the small unit where it would impact parking is probably greater than spreading, 6 additional spaces out among a unit that has 300.
Yeah, I think you could write something. I mean, if you take a number, like our bicycle parking requirement is related to car parking, but then once you hit a certain point, it's +1 for every additional 5. I think there's a way to write something like that. So what I'd like to do then is either for public hearing in the future or for another workshop, either come back with a specific, one way or another, come back with specific modifications to the code that are similar to some of these things. And we could do that as a workshop or a hearing, however the commission would like to see it.
Well, if we start the public hearing process, it seems that, I think you have some direction from us, I'm hoping you do, that, we like what you're considering here, that if we start the public hearing process, then we can get it done, instead of going through another workshop.
That's true. We could continue it if it's,
Yeah.
what we draft is.
We have, yeah. We have continued it, we've continued it in the past. I'd like to start the process. I'd like to start the public hearing process.
I guess my only concern is that I'd like to have the flexibility of going through the entire thing once and be able to say, yeah, I like numbers 1, 2, and 3, but number 4, we don't like. 5, 6, and 7 are okay. 8's not too good, so we're not approving the whole thing in one, the objective of being able to approve it all at once. I'd still like the ability to tune and tweak along the way.
Can we approve?
You can absolutely drop something from your recommendation if the consensus is that one of the staff recommendations is not desirable.
And then we can always come back and
Yeah, I mean,
tweak it
at that
later.
point, we can debate whether or not you want to keep the docket open for the purposes of discussing the one last additional item, or just close it
Well,
and
then,
move it on.
Based upon that, then, maybe we should refine it a little bit. Maybe we should do one more workshop.
That's fine. I think we were
That might
looking at
be
March.
better. Commissioner Schaaf, how do you feel about that? Another workshop?
I'd like one more.
Okay. Commissioner Stallion, how do you feel? Commissioner Dorbin? Another
I'd
workshop?
like another one.
Okay. Commissioner Burns?
Yes.
Aye. Another workshop.
Maybe we'll shoot for the middle March meeting, or is that the 20, or the 14th?
14th?
Something like that?
Yep.
Does anybody have the calendar in front of them?
Yep, it's the 14th. The same as February.
Same as February.
Same as February. Always has been, except when there's 20.
That would be the second
on
meeting in
leap
March
year.
then.
Except on.
So we'd be looking at the 21st.
How about
7 is the first Thursday of, 14th would be the first meeting of the month.
Okay.
14,
maybe-
21, 28 are the meetings in March.
All right, we'll see how, I think we've got public hearings for the 14th, so we can maybe do this on the 21st.
calendar? I have a question about lease restrictions. Are they prohibited now in Wheeling?
I'm sorry?
Lease restrictions on number of cars a renter owns. Is there
No,
a prohibition against that?
I don't think so. I don't think we have anything.
So would that be between the landlord and the tenants? And
I don't believe there's anything that would stop somebody from doing that. I think it would be a landlord decision. They manage it. If they feel that the parking is best handled through a lease restriction, you have, when you own the property and you've got X number of parking spaces, you can say that my 3 bedrooms get this many, my 2 bedrooms get this many, and if somebody would like to rent a space, they can rent a space.
so that wouldn't involve the plan commission or the village?
It wouldn't involve the plan commission of the village. That we could try to figure out some way to write flexible management options into the code so that it's handled during site plan review. We can take a look at how other towns have done that.
Okay.
There may be some landlords that may not care about whether they have too much parking or too little parking. And how do we accommodate that as well?
Right now, what we have seen, just talking to the managers of the buildings elsewhere, and we're not talking about places that are very far from here. We're talking about most likely the same potential pool of renters. We're just up the street in both cases. They haven't had complaints. They don't see it as a problem. It's, the demand for parking is not exceeding the amount they have.
Cool. So just for clarification, we do another workshop. You're going to bring it to us as it would be, or would be considered for a public hearing?
That's the plan. I would draft it up and
Okay, great.
have
Thank you.
supporting information with it.
Excellent. Next item?
The next item, this should be very short. We went back through the records to see which items had been recommended for an award since the last time we did awards, and there were, I believe, 3. It was the Cooper's Hawk sign, the Berthog sign, and the Cairo 1 sign. None of those are very recent anymore, so if the commission would like to do another round of awards, the one that we did back in 2006 and 2007, a lot of that reached back into the past. I think we gave some awards to a couple of things that were quite old. I think that it's probably more effective if it's in everybody's more recent memory. So
Sure.
we can, just my suggestion, the commission can do what it pleases with the awards. But for us to contact a sign company that did a sign several years ago, I don't know that they would appreciate it as much as somebody who did it in the last year or 2.
Right.
So what I would ask for, if the consensus is to do a sign award and a general appearance award, is maybe for the commission to get us some nominations,
Yes.
and then the staff can put together what we did the last time around was basically a ballot, and we got first choice, second choice, third choice, assign a point total to each one of those, and then we added up the points and invited them in for presentation of a certificate.
So a month of searching? Okay, so by March 14th, have your nominations into Mr. Jennings and Brooke? Great, March 14th. Excellent, thank you. Distribution of review checklist for independent assessment of comprehensive plan.
I found a checklist in a CMAP document that I thought was pretty good. I went through it. There's a couple of things that I think we could probably make more wheeling specific. So what I'd like to do is just take their checklist, steal from it what is appropriate, and then add to it some items. So maybe next meeting. And what I like to do with that, especially with the prospect of having a new commissioner, is provide the checklist, maybe give everyone a month or so to come up. It's not going to be that time consuming, but just a month or so to look at the different sections and say, this seems applicable still, this seems
Okay.
like it's no longer valid, and that.
So you want another month?
Well, I'll distribute it maybe at the next meeting, and then a month after that, we can get back together and review.
Great.
It's more of a independent study.
Great. All right. Excellent. Thank you.
Homework.
Anything else? Nope.
Do we get credit hours for that?
Yeah, you do. Continuing on other business, Commissioner Burns, anything?
Nothing from me.
Commissioner Dorban?
Nothing, thank you.
Commissioner Schaff?
Well, the only thing I can come up with is how do we get, the issues about parking lots and specifically Dunhurst, the condition of the parking lot, the outlot, how do we bring it? It doesn't seem right to bring it into when somebody comes for appearance, but other than that, how can we get the landowner in and put a little pressure on him? I'm struggling with that.
The condition of the parking lot is a significant maintenance problem. You can always report it. I can tell you that at any given time, we are in some process of enforcing code regulations on shopping centers related to their parking lots and the disrepair of the parking lot. So most of the shopping center owners at one time or another have received a call or a notice of violation.
And you can see who owns the Dunhurst over there, where Save-A-Lot's going in? Linsky. What they did was they addressed where the new tenant was going to be, because that was redone in just the last few months. But anytime that we've tried to do something in that outlot there, right there on the corner, he's always been very sensitive to that. We could have had the Starbucks, but he wouldn't budge on the access. So it's just a tough call to get him in.
And if I can add to that, going back to Richard Greenwood's time, which was a long, long time ago, I believe Dunhurst came in, Pam, you might have been here then, with a 3-phase plan to upgrade the center. Phase 1 of the plan was to upgrade the facade. Phase 2 was to add curb and guttering around the parking lot. And Phase 3 was to do a whole bunch of landscaping as the result of it. He did Phase 1, has never come back to do Phase 2 or Phase 3. So, that was a condition that was established probably 20 years ago now that has never been fulfilled. But on the other hand, the petitioner has never come back in that 20 years for us to ask, when are you going to start to do Phase 2? So, that's the problem. What can we do when tenants come in and out of a facility? What are the limits that the Plan Commission can go to get the landlord to fulfill some of the, quote, agreements or conditions that he made many, many, many moons ago?
The options are, we've discussed this a couple of times. The options are always, you have more options when the shopping center is proposing something which has discretionary approval. Something like a special use review, where you can relate the impact of what they're doing to the mitigation of what the village would like. So that's the short answer. There's also, if there's a code violation, there's a code violation, and we can work on that. It is not always so simple as just calling somebody and saying, repair your parking lot. It takes time. By the time that you get to court, it's months after the fact, and the judge doesn't always agree with the village. So we try to work with them before court because it's time-consuming and expensive. So there's a couple of different options of how to make the improvements. The best is, the easiest is when they need it because their tenant demands it. That's the best for us, in that it's fast, they do it voluntarily, they may split the cost, and it gets done immediately.
So that's kind of like the painting the rest of the building that we did tonight, right? If the tenant can push his case with landlord, maybe it'll get done.
Exactly.
Well, the other thing was the only reason that I wanted to see that type of a condition in that was just to bring it to the Board of Trustees' attention. You know, give them some food for thought, but, you know, whether that's going to make any difference or not, doesn't.
I don't, that wouldn't go to the board.
Right.
Yeah, right. I mean, they'll see it in the minutes that they get from us, but the appearance and modification, the site plan, the appearance and the sign, you know, they'll see it if they choose to.
Right.
You know, that we're trying to get them in here. So, okay, thank you. Anything else, Commissioner Schaaf?
No, that's it. Thank you.
Commissioner Steilen?
Yes, of course. I've got a list in front of me today, so I got 5 things.
Typing them now.
You ready for them?
Ready as we ever will be.
Okay, a follow-up question on the concept of an airport overlay zone. Andrew, have you made any progress on considering whether we should look into that or not look into that? The airport consultants seem to think that it might be a reasonable thing to do, or should I say the Southeast TIF consultants seem to think that would be reasonable.
They did just submit a revised draft of their plan, and that's going to be, we're setting up a staff meeting to talk about their revised plan. That's the latest.
But their area of coverage is like 1 square block. I'm talking 1 square mile, right, or however big the airport.
Yeah, I think independent of what they're doing, we can probably talk about.
I think it should be something. Yeah, I think it should be something that we should consider.
And Mr. Chairman, maybe to help us a little bit, if we would write a letter to the village board asking for their thoughts on, you know, a thumbs up or thumbs down, whether we should proceed in that area. What do you think? Would it be advisable to just ask them?
Let me take it under consideration.
Okay, my next item was the Southeast TIF, and it sounds like we're going to get an update on that fairly shortly. Andrew?
Yes, there's we did receive a revised draft of it. The consultant was actually waiting for us. In this case, we had some internal discussions about their plan that we needed to work out. So we've been going over their recommendations, and they have just revised their draft to include both the requests of the commission related to environmental cleanup costs being factored in some way in their numbers.
Yeah.
We asked them to just, a lot of their numbers, as a result of that discussion, a lot of their numbers, we had questions about what assumptions were made. It came out during the Plan Commission meeting that they had an assumption that they were basically doubling up on the detention. They were sizing the lots to be below the minimum requirement, and then also providing the detention that would have not been required. So there are a couple of assumptions like that we wanted to be spelled out so that when the board sees it, they understand the reason this number is what it is because it's an assumption, it's got a guess on environmental cleanup cost, it's got doubling up on the detention, so they can understand what they're looking at. And that's what we have so far.
Okay.
Good.
The next item was, I just like a follow-up. You were going to create a brochure of some kind to show prospective people, our new landscaping percentages and requirements? Have you taken any action on?
Nothing yet, nothing substantial yet. We've got some photographs, but nothing worth showing yet.
And then I believe the village board recently approved or is considering some lighting down Wolf Road. And I'll make the same suggestion that the Plan Commission be involved in the fixture selection process for that particular light. Now, by the old subcommittee standards, that would be a, what kind of road was that? It wasn't the main road, it was a collector street or something like that. And we didn't get into selecting anything for a collector street, so it might be interesting for the whole commission to.
Wasn't that the one thing that we discussed a month ago, or 2 months ago?
We did for Dundee, not for
Was it
Wolf
Dundee
Road.
that we were talking about? Yeah, it was Dundee. Sorry. No, I thought it was.
The board has talked about both.
Pardon?
The board has talked about both under different projects. One was a grant.
Did they approve though lighting on Wolf Road, or was it just a conceptual thing? Do you know?
That was conceptual for
Right.
cost. They were looking at different scenarios for the reconstruction of Wolf Road related to a jurisdictional transfer. So I think a placeholder number was assigned to the lights. It would go, that number goes up if the lights are spaced differently. So, you know, it goes down if you space out the lights more and make them taller, the number goes down. You put them closer together and make them shorter, the number goes up. So whatever that number was that they had, I think had assumed a certain spacing of lights.
Any chance the Plan Commission could be involved in some of that
I don't know I don't know if they're at a point of, the idea of that, I believe, was related to the jurisdictional transfer. If the village were to accept Wolf Road, this is what IDOT would do. If the village wants that project to include more things, here's the additional cost of the village. I think that was the idea of that discussion. I don't know if it got into the level of detail of how to actually do it. I think it was just deciding whether or not the village wants the road.
Okay, but you don't know if they decided if they really wanted lights or didn't want lights?
I don't know that for sure. I'd check.
Well, you know, but if you could find out, because, you know, that's what we're here for, I would think. So, excuse me.
And my last item goes together with that funny little Shell Auto lot that's not usable, and just a general comment about cross-access. It took many years for us, Jim, you might have been here when we got the Gaslight Plaza and Ace Hardware to finally join their lots together and get rid of 2 curb cuts and whatever, but that took many a year to get those 2 parties to agree to joining more or less their lots together. What I'd like to see or suggest is, can we come up with a general statement, ordinance, requirement, whatever, that says adjacent parcels should, if their parking lots are immediately adjacent to each other, they must have a cross-access agreement. So like AutoZone and Phillips 66. Well, yeah, there's a little ramp there, but is it really that bad? Could they have worked out a cross-access agreement? And the other lots all the way down Milwaukee and Dundee, not just those particular sites, but try to get property owners to join their lots together so we can eliminate some curb cuts, maybe eliminate some of the traffic congestion on Dundee Road. You know, is that feasible? Is that something that we could take a look at?
It's, as of right now, it's a should in the code. It's in Title 17 and Title 19 as a should. In a subdivision scenario, where they're going to be related, I think you have much more flexibility to require it. But when you have a single lot that's saying, I would like to develop this building, and there's an existing curb cut on each, and they don't own the other one or have any control over it, I don't think that we can change it to a shall. But if it's a subdivision scenario where you're trying to reduce the number of curb cuts onto the major streets, I think that it's.
Well, I mean,
very
it's
possible.
even like Gaslight and the Pearl Vision.
Vision.
I believe they have just that little
Yeah.
strip of land between them, but there's two curb cuts, and it would be so easy to join them together, get rid of a curb cut. Probably, might give one or the other some additional parking and alleviate some congestion on, I'd really like to see if there's something that we could change to mandate that property owners try to work together to create.
As they come in for changes, or are we going to go store to store and say, you've got to do this?
Well, I don't know, you can't mandate that they
No.
do it tomorrow, so it
Right,
has
you
to
can't
be
mandate
as they come in.
Right, but we have, don't we have that? As
Well,
if
he
something's
says it's
coming
a
in?
shall,
Well,
which
it's a
doesn't-
should, so I mean, we can enforce it, right?
No,
I mean, if we
think
can.
shall isn't
I think you
should.
have the ability on a subdivision situation of
Right.
enforcing it, but if it's just a development, you can't say, you're not going to be able to reuse your curb cut. I mean, you're taking away a property right, or mandating that they enter into an agreement with somebody that they may not agree with. So I don't know, I think it's more of a legal question than a planning question at that point.
Now, and that makes sense probably, so, that's something we can forward on to our attorneys, but we also have to understand that, I mean, we throw a lot of stuff at staff here, and as we all well know, their staff isn't as big as it used to be. So we need to start prioritizing some of these things, because we can't, he's working on the parking, which is a big undertaking, and the appearance, sign appearance, which is a big undertaking, collating all of that stuff on top of putting together all the plans, the planning stuff that they're supposed to do. So, Commissioner Steilen, I completely understand where you're coming from, but we have to, and I know we've talked about this in the past. We've had a list of things that we've talked about, and it's hard to keep those up, but we need to store them somewhere and then prioritize them and tick them off the list, because I got to tell you, it's tough if you come in with 4 or 5 things that, that we're not prioritizing. It's tough for staff to do that, especially.
Excellent, let's prioritize it then.
Right, well, let's, so Commissioner Steilen, then send me your list, or send Andrew the list, and we'll formalize it. If any other commissioner has something that they would like staff to look at, please send that. I'm speaking for you, but I'm trying to relieve some of the stuff that you're doing here, just to put it in a list. And heck, I'll even be the keeper of it. It's not that difficult to put together a Excel spreadsheet and put 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 for priority items and see where they're at. So then we have that, because we just can't keep throwing stuff at them. We just can't, and I know, Commissioner Steilen, you sent me a couple of things over the past couple of weeks around some things that we, that need to be on that list too. So that are, impact our ordinances, but we just need to take that list, prioritize it.
Yep.
So could they send me that list, and then I could work it, or is that any?
Yes, they can communicate. They can communicate with you. These are requests for future discussions.
Right.
They are not, first of all, I don't think you're talking about copying everybody on it.
No.
But
No.
yeah, you can do one-on-one communication to help prioritize the list.
Okay, good. So with that said, send me what you would, the items that you would like to have in a discussion panel like we did for parking. Or, you know, could be something as a symbol, as an amendment that I know Commissioner Steinle, that you had sent myself and Mr. Jennings, some simple things like that that we could discuss. And maybe not the next meeting, maybe by the 21st, I'll have that together and I'll send it to Andrew. He could put it in the packet and we can prioritize these things and then be done. And then as we get things added, we look at our list and say, okay, is this still a top priority? And then go from there.
Maybe
I think it would
review the list once a year and
even, you know, if it's,
see if they still apply.
if it's not 400 things, we could probably do it more often than once a year. You know, I know you listed 5 now, you know, if I add in the couple that you sent me, that's 7 or 8.
I
know.
would think quarterly would be better.
Yeah, right. I think quarterly we might be able to review it. And then it gives staff, Andrew and Brooke and whomever, some chance to, you know, think about what we're trying to do in the future.
Excellent suggestion.
Okay, cool. Anything else?
That'll do it.
Okay. Two things. One, the new auto parts store.
Yes.
What is it? Auto Nation? No. What is it? Advance Auto. I knew it started with an A. You know, and I never get the square footage right, you know, what they can put in their windows as far as signage goes. But you go by there and you can barely see inside.
They are eyeballing that. I would say they're over for sure. I think they are. In addition to that, they have a banner under the fascia, covers part of the brick, part of the window.
Right. Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah, I think I would have to look and see what they actually applied for with their grand opening, but I would imagine that whatever they did apply for is probably expired by this point. You've got a 90-day grand opening period.
Oh yeah.
I would suspect that they've been open for more than 90. I could check their permit and see what they're up to.
Yeah. I mean, 90 days would have been around Thanksgiving, and they've been here a long time. So anyway, and then lastly, in the audience is Steve Powers, our new Plan Commission member-elect. He will be sitting up here at our next meeting, which is the 28th, Mr. Jennings? Right.
That's correct. We have nothing.
Planned right
We
now.
have a placeholder for next week's agenda that if there was
Right.
carryover from tonight, but otherwise,
Okay.
no meeting next week.
And I'd like to hold off any workshop items until we get the new member on so he can participate. I have nothing else, so do I hear a motion?
So moved.
A second? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
That's it. We are